Hello and welcome. It's the October 31st edition of the presidential election update, the latest state of the race. My name is John Toppelmeyer. And today I'm going to talk about two states that are beginning to look more and more like they're in Donald Trump's camp. That's Nevada and Arizona. Nevada, I think, is really clear. It's becoming very, very clear that the lead is beginning to look like it might be insurmountable. Still a little bit of question, but it's beginning to look that. Arizona, things are looking very strong. And because of that, Kamala Harris's path to White House is narrowing. So let's get into that and go over that. We're going to talk about that and a few other swing states, some other data from early voting from swing states. So let's get into it. This is the state of the race, October the 31st. I have Trump up by 0.2 of a percentage point, 50.1 to 49.9. In the popular vote, I think he has a very, very narrow lead in the popular vote. And in the electoral college, 312 to 226. And what I'm showing here, based on the polls, they're based on the polls, not my analysis of the swing states of the early voting, but based on the polls. Going over the swing states, I think Wisconsin now and Michigan look like the closest. At least what the polls are telling us, that Wisconsin and Michigan look like the closest. Wisconsin 0.4, real tight. Michigan 0.6. Pennsylvania now looks at 1.5. North Carolina 1.8. We've got Nevada 1.2. I don't think that this is realistic. And North Carolina 1.8. I think I mentioned that. Arizona 2.6 and Georgia 2.6. As I say, Arizona, that's probably it might be a little bit higher than that in reality. Georgia's beginning to look a bit solid, a bit solid. So with that in mind, and these figures are based on a slew of polls, absolute slew of polls that came in the last 24 hours, mostly in the swing states that have caused these numbers to change. 3 polls in the national that came in, so we've had a little bit of a slight shift there. So let's look at, as I say, with if Arizona and Nevada go for Trump, then Kamala Harris's path to the White House comes down to these 5 swing states, and in particular, it looks like these 4 of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. She would need to win all of those 4 states to get over 270. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. This race is not over. It's definitely not over. It's not impossible, but it is beginning to look a little bit more chancy for Kamala Harris. So, with that in mind, what I'm now going to turn my attention to is the state of Nevada. This is the state with the clearest indication from the early voting what the state of the race in that state is. And the reason why is because in Nevada, the last time 2020, about 90% of the votes were cast before election day. Maybe be a little bit less here, but it's looking like very favorable for the Republicans. As we can see here, this is the total by party affiliation, and the other being independents and minor parties of the in-person and mail voting totals as of October the 31st. So this is the most recent update, and this was updated just about an hour ago before I made this video. Republicans have about a 5-point lead that's been pretty steady, a real steady lead, and it's about a 42,000 vote lead in the party affiliation. Now, the thing is, it's not that every Democrat cast their vote for Kamala Harris and every Republican cast their vote for Donald Trump, but the polling and the data suggests that it's going to be more than 90% for both of these. So these more than 90% probability that these votes are going to be cast for their respective party candidates. So the fate of the race is going to come down to this independent vote. My estimation, based on 7 polls, and I basically created a meta poll out of 7 state polls for Nevada, I have Trump up 50-44 now. I think he's up by six points. And the thing is, each of these 7 polls, all of them have Trump in the lead in the independent votes. They could be wrong. They could be wrong, but that's what we have. So if we take that view, and if we take a view of the vast majority of the Democratic and Republican votes, they're going to be cast for their respective party candidates. Here is my estimation of the actual votes. This is my estimation of where the votes are now in Nevada as of now, right now, for the votes that have been turned in, and that the number of votes that have been cast, not who they've voted for, but they have been cast, have been counted. So we've got about 900,000 votes for the 2 candidates. I have Trump up by 64,000 votes, approximately 64,000 votes. That's almost a 7% lead. That's a pretty big margin. Now, as I say, that assumption is that he's carrying the independents by 6 points. That could be different. Let's say it's 10 points the other way. The Harris is carrying by 4 points. So a 10-point swing to it, that's 20,000 votes. That's only a 20,000 vote swing. And 64,000, that's only 20. That's would only turn this into a 44,000 vote lead. So Trump would still have a substantial lead, even if that. So the only chance that Kamala Harris has is that there's a slew of mail-in ballots that come in the next 3 days or so. So let's look at the regional numbers, because it's kind of shocking, really. The impact, the implication of these statewide numbers. I have Trump ahead in Clark County. That's Las Vegas. That's incredible if that's true. I think in the end, I think Harris is going to carry Clark County, but it's going to be real narrow amount. It's not going to be much. So with that, because of that, you're going to have a lead. That's Washoe and Carson City. That's Reno. Carson City. That's going to be reasonably solid for Trump, about the same as statewide in terms of the percentage. And the rural area, overwhelmingly, it's not big. It's only 100,000 votes so far, and maybe a bit more when all is said and done. And these people live in a gigantic area that would swallow up many of the states in the U.S. Vast, empty area of the rural part of the state. But Trump is overwhelming lead in that part of the state. So now we're going to turn to Arizona. Similar numbers. And first I'm going to start out again with the in-person and mail voting total. And you can see the Republicans have a solid lead. It's an 8-point lead in the total votes cast so far. So a big lead for the Republicans in Arizona. Now, the thing that makes Arizona, too, we think, well, that should make it pretty clear if there's such a huge lead. It's a 160,000 vote lead. Excuse me. The problem is, though, it looks like there's some evidence stating that Republicans are defecting. More Republicans are defecting to Kamala Harris than Democrats are defecting to Donald Trump. So because of that, and because Harris leads the independents, I have 49-47. It could be smaller. This number is probably a bit fuzzier. Maybe she has a bigger lead. And there are a lot of others. It's kind of similar numbers. 26% of the electorate in Arizona. But here's what we get out of that. So at least so far, Trump with about 106,000 vote lead in Arizona is right now. It's about a 5% lead. As I say, it could be closer. It could be maybe a point and a half. Maybe it's a 3 to 4 point lead, than a 5 point lead. But I think that's the best that you can count on. And maybe there's going to be some mail-in surge at the end so that these numbers tighten up a bit. But I think she faces an uphill climb, not quite as much as Nevada, but I think she faces an uphill climb there. So that's why my view is that these two states are really trending towards Trump, and it's dramatically narrows the path that Kamala Harris has to the White House. Now I'm going to turn to one of the swing states that I have this estimation for, and it's North Carolina, and it's really fascinating. These are the in-person mail voting totals. This is through October the 30th. It's one day behind. And you can see it's almost evenly split between the Democrats, Republicans, and this other independent. There's a huge, huge independent vote in North Carolina. So this is going to make it really, really tough to call this state. Now, I have that Harris is up in independent, so I think that she's leading in this vote. The Republicans have a lead here. In my estimation, Harris might have a lead here, but because the lead, it's about a 50,000 vote lead here, my estimation is that Trump is roughly 40,000. This is fuzzy though, and again, it's because the independent. I've got some updated poll numbers that reduced the independent margin for Kamala Harris in North Carolina. Not sure if that's the case. These numbers are fuzzier. These numbers are fuzzy. I've got a roughly 1 percentage point lead. It's not much. And I would say right now it's a toss up. We're not going to know until election night. If then, whether Trump indeed will carry North Carolina. But as I say, she will, given the state of the race in Arizona and Nevada, this is a must win now. Kamala Harris is a must win, and at best it's real tight. So this nervous time there. Now, yesterday, if you were here with me yesterday, I talked about Georgia. I've taken Georgia out. Now, all of these estimations are based on party identification. That you don't have party identification in Georgia, and I tried to use ethnicity identification to try to make that estimation. I've looked more deeply at these numbers, and I had Trump in the lead by 2 points. I think it's just it's not a really valid way to do it. I think it'd give a rough indication, and if there was a huge lead, well, it would show that. But I don't think it's worth showing you. So I've taken that out. I'm going to just focus on the polls there. I think Trump has a solid lead, a solid enough lead in Georgia that Michigan and Wisconsin are what we want to focus on. Now, the problem there is for early voting, there's no information given on party affiliation for the people that have voted. So we don't know. There's no way of estimating. We're just going to have to just guess and see what's going to happen on election night there. Finally, I'm going to look. Oh, yes, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania and the second district of Nebraska. These are updates, a little bit more vote, but it's kind of trickling in Pennsylvania. Not Harris has a lead. It's 18, almost 19 points. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in this. This is largely a Democratic vote. It's overwhelmingly Democratic so far. Every indication is the Republicans that have come out later. Most of the vote, including Democrats, is going to come day of. Pennsylvania is different. It's day of state. We're not going to know. All I'm doing is putting you here just to show these numbers, which are probably going to shrink. These numbers are going to shrink as we get to election day, and then we're going to find out what the real race there is. Now, finally, I'm going to show you the 2nd District of Nebraska. Harris has got a lead. This is definitely, it's a 7-point lead. Looks pretty solid. This is Omaha. She Biden carried this district 4 years ago. So I think she's going to carry it. Some polling has had more than 10. I don't think it's going to, that doesn't look like it's going to be 10. It's probably going to be 5 to 6. That's what I would say. Maybe a little bit tighter than people thought, but still, this is going to be a solid victory for Kamala Harris in the 2nd District of Nebraska. So with that, I'm going to close. I think we were definitely now getting a lean towards Trump in terms of winning this election. Arizona and Nevada are beginning to look like they're coming out of reach for the Democrats, but Kamala Harris still has a chance in those the remaining swing states, but with a narrow and more narrow path to victory. So if you like my content here, please like and please share. What you see here, I don't think there's anywhere else where you're getting this kind of estimation of actual votes cast. So if you think that's an interesting approach to looking at the early voting figures, please share that. And thank you for watching. I'm going to be back tomorrow, so please come back tomorrow for more content as we get the election day approach. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.